Hi everyone, assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Hikmahology. Today it's just me, Craig, just doing a quick post, just giving you a little rundown of some of the things I've been learning today. And today we're going to talk about Jinn. But not about your folklore, not about your Aladdin or your Jinn stories that your cousins told you. I'm going to talking about maybe more accurately what Jinn means in the Qur'an. So start off with, first thing I learned during my research, is that Jinn is, as all Arabic words are, from a root, three-letter root, and the meaning of the Jinn, three-letter root, al-Jannah, means something which is usually concealed from man's senses. And according to all philologists, according to what I read, this usually means something that is covered in an intense or confusing darkness. A lot of what I'll be talking about today is from Muhammad Asad, who was a really great Qur'anic translator and commentator, and he uses a more broad term of things or beings that are, usually concealed from man's senses, i.e. that those things or forces that we can't normally see and which are hidden due to their texture or nature. So to start off with, usually Jinn can be a broader term for beings or forces that are spiritual in nature. And actually, interestingly, Muhammad Asad in his appendix 3 of his translation of the Qur'an actually says that this can be a broader term for all of those spiritual beings that we would term as Satans or Shaitan, and also angels. That's an interesting thing when it comes to Iblis. Was he a Jinn or was he an angel? According to Muhammad Asad, Jinn is actually an overall term that can refer to Shaitan or satanic forces and angels. Why? Because they are things also that are hidden from our senses. We can't see them on a day-to-day basis. So as an umbrella term, they also fall under this bracket. And also he confirms this his own idea based on the hadith also that talk about the angels being from light, and the Qur'anic verses that mention that Jinn are from fire, intertwining fire and light being kind of synonymous, that these terms can be under the umbrella of Jinn or al-Jinn. Next, we can see Jinn in a more general sense of what we would maybe be, used to as in overall spiritual forces that inhabit this earth with us, but we can't see. Another aspect of creation that inhabit this earth or between this earth and heaven that we can encounter when you talk about Jinn stories, and the Jinn that have free will and that we can interact with, but usually we can't see. They're beyond our imagination, they're beyond our senses, because of their nature. Their nature is maybe so fine. They are not made of the matter that we are, and so because we can't usually see them, they are also Jinn. And it's those beings that usually get confused about whenever we talk about ghost stories or hauntings. It's actually encounter with these other beings. Another term that Muhammad Asad talks about in his appendix that Jinn can refer to is aspects of nature or even human nature that are concealed within us, and that in terms of their cause we can't see, but in terms of their effect we can see. So hidden aspects of maybe the subconscious or human nature and reality can also come under the umbrella of al-Jinn. Now, the real reason why I'm putting this post up is because I was reading his commentary on verse 1 of Surah 72. Now, this is the verse that talks about when a certain group of Jinn came to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and heard the Qur'an and said it was a delightful revelation and were going back to their people to tell them about it. So this is where Jinn, according to some commentators, the minority, not the majority, but a minority, say that it can mean that those strangers who were up until that point concealed from your senses. So it's not just things that are always concealed, but up until a certain point were concealed. That this can also be under the umbrella term of al-Jinn. So when the Qur'an's talking about the Jinn that came to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and heard the Qur'an in Surah 72 verse 1, Muhammad Asad makes an interesting commentary that it's possible that this is actually referring to a group of followers of the Mosaic faith, i.e. Jews, who came to listen to the Qur'an. they were, up until that point, unseen. And this is also a viewpoint taken by Tabari, who was a scholar from many centuries ago, and a Persian scholar who was a jurist, who was a historian, and also a Qur'an commentator, who also had this point of view, more specifically that the Jinn, or the strangers who came to the Prophet, who are referred to in this verse, came from somewhere in modern day Iraq. That was really interesting, not something that, usually if you ask 99.9% of Muslims who the Jinn are in this verse, they will say, oh, it's Jinn, the Jinn that are the spirits that are with another creation along with the human beings and angels, and they came to listen to the Prophet. But it's interesting to see that this term of Jinn or al-Jinn can mean possibly different things in different contexts. And it's just always taking in the overall meaning of things that are hidden or were hidden from our senses. And if you look at a good website that has lots of different translations of the Qur'an, there are some, a minority, maybe just two of the major ones that do mention the Jinn. Whenever I mention Jinn in the Qur'an, it does mention something about nomads or non-city dwellers. So there is a very minority opinion that Jinn is not necessarily, if ever, referring to spirits, but to those people or strangers or non-city dwellers that are, up until that point, unseen because they live outside of civilization as such. That's a minority view, but I just thought I'd point that out. Interesting little anecdote. Have a think about it. Not being dogmatic here, just an interesting point. Maybe you never heard of it before. If you struck it off, great. It's, like I said, it's a minority view, but it's always interesting to bring different views to our consciousness and learn from them. We don't always have to accept them, but it's always good to broaden our minds. So for more interesting topics, ways to make us think that we wouldn't usually think, not the usual things that you'd hear, come join me for more of these small little takes again, to go into more detail about interesting fun facts about the Quran that maybe make you think, and will maybe just broaden your horizon a little bit. I hope, inshallah. Until then, see you soon. Salams.